What funny family story do you now realize was actually kind of messed up? My family had this tradition called restaurant roulette that I genuinely thought was the most exciting dining experience ever. We'd get all dressed up for a fancy dinner out, drive to some upscale restaurant, order appetizers and drinks, then suddenly my dad would get a work emergency call and we'd have to leave immediately. As kids, my sister Emma and I thought it was hilarious. Dad would dramatically answer his phone, look panicked, and announce we had to evacuate the restaurant right now. We'd quickly grab our stuff and rush out while our food was being prepared. Sometimes we'd barely get our drinks before the emergency struck. Mom would play along perfectly, sighing about Dad's demanding job and how important clients couldn't wait. The staff would look confused as we apologized profusely and promised to come back another time. Dad always left a $20 tip for the inconvenience, which seemed generous to us kids. The best part was that we'd always end up at McDonald's or some drive-thru afterward. Dad would buy us Happy Meals and call it our backup plan dinner. We loved getting toys and eating in the car while he told us funny stories about his fake work crisis. We played restaurant roulette maybe once a month for years. Sometimes the emergency call came before we even ordered. Other times we'd actually get our appetizers before fleeing. Dad had different personas for each call: the frantic businessman, the concerned client manager, the apologetic team leader. Emma and I started rating his performances. We'd whisper scores to each other based on how convincing his panic looked and whether he remembered to sound breathless when answering the phone. It became this inside joke where we'd predict when the call would come. The tradition had strict rules we didn't understand at the time. We could only go to restaurants where we'd never been before. We weren't allowed to mention restaurant roulette to friends or other family members, and we always had to act genuinely disappointed when Dad got his emergency call. Looking back, there were weird signs I should have noticed. Dad would always scope out the exit before we sat down. He'd time how long it took to get menus and would get antsy if service was too slow. Mom would keep her purse on her lap instead of setting it down like normal. The game stopped abruptly when I was about 12. One night at a steakhouse, Dad's phone rang right on schedule, but instead of his usual performance, he just stared at the screen and let it go to voicemail. We actually ate a full meal that night, and it felt weird. Years later, during college, I mentioned restaurant roulette to my roommate as this quirky family tradition. She looked at me like I was insane. "Your parents taught you how to dine and dash," she said. "That's literally theft of services." I laughed and said we always left money for drinks. That's when it hit me. We'd been stealing food for years under the guise of a fun family game. Those weren't real work emergencies. They were planned escapes before the bill came. Dad's $20 tips covered our drinks and appetizers, but never the full meals we'd ordered. I confronted my parents about it last Christmas. Dad got defensive and said they were teaching us to be flexible and handle unexpected situations. Mom claimed it was just harmless fun that didn't hurt anyone since we paid for what we consumed. But I realized they'd turned us into unwitting accomplices in their scam. We provided the perfect cover. A family with cute kids couldn't possibly be criminals. Our genuine disappointment when leaving made the whole thing believable to restaurant staff. The worst part is that Emma and I actually bragged about restaurant roulette to friends, thinking it made our family sound adventurous and spontaneous. We had no idea we were describing a systematic fraud operation disguised as quality family time.